Hey everybody, welcome to Head to Head, a Star Wars show. Looks like Boba Fett is back again, and this time he's in a new series called War of the Bounty Hunters, and we're going to talk about it right now.
You're listening to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Two fans, two generations, all things Star Wars begins now.
All right, hello everybody, I'm Eric Vansel, and as you can see, Daryl's not with me tonight, but you know what? That's okay. Maybe he'll pop in on the chat, or maybe he won't. But you know what? I didn't want to go another week without giving you guys something. Our schedules have been a little bit weird this past few weeks or whatever, but you know what? I'm here, and we're going to talk a little bit about Star Wars. Now, the interesting thing about tonight's show is that this one came completely out of nowhere for me. I don't know about you guys, but Boba Fett seems like he's just been popping up everywhere lately, and this is no exception. So I was going through a bunch of stuff, reading my usual Star Wars news or whatever, and then all of a sudden, I'm reading this whole thing about Boba Fett now, and I see, as you can see in the picture next to me, he's in this really cool battle armor, and all this stuff is going on, and I'm like, what on earth is this? And so then I finally realized, like, hey, this is actually pretty cool, and so I started to investigate it a little bit more, and found out that he's going to be in this series called War of the Bounty Hunters. And it was written by a guy named Charles Soule. Now, I'm not really sure if he's going to author all the comics in this series or not, but he's definitely going to be doing at least the first issue, and probably, I would imagine, some of the ones beyond. But the interesting thing about this is he's written a couple of Star Wars books. He's been written, hey, Ronaldo, what's going on, man? Good to see you with us. I set these chats to actually pop up automatically because I don't have Daryl with me. So, it's good of you to join us. The thing is that with Boba Fett, he's coming up. He's going to be in The Mandalorian, obviously, right? We've already seen him in Season 2. Now he's going to be in 3. He's coming up with his own series, The Book of Boba Fett. We don't really know how many episodes that's going to be, but I'm assuming that it's going to be at least, I want to say 4 or 5. I don't really think that the Book of Boba Fett's going to be any less than 4. But you never know. And now all of a sudden, he's popping up in this new series called War of the Bounty Hunters. Now, what's interesting, there's a couple of interesting things if you go and you read the article. But number one, it's taking place between The Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. So we're going to see a little bit of Boba Fett with Han Solo. So as you guys remember, at the end of Return of the Jedi, at the end of Empire Strikes Back, he basically comes and he's doing all kinds of like crazy things at first that we see. Because I was actually hoping that we were going to see more of Boba Fett in The Empire Strikes Back. That was my hope. I don't know about you guys, but I was thinking, like, are we going to be able to see a little bit more of him? Because he's just so cool. But we didn't, and that's fine. But it looks like what's going to happen here is we're going to see what happens after Boba Fett gets Han Solo and Carbonite, but before he goes to the Hutts. Now, I just wanted to, like I said, I just want to do a really quick show that outlines this. Is not going to be one of our usual crazy 3-hour shows that we usually do. But I just wanted to go over some of the things that we find out in this new Marvel series. One of them, besides the fact that it takes place between Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, he's actually going to go... Well, these chats are like going crazy. Yeah, I don't know what's happening, Ronaldo. It's not refreshing for me. You guys will have to forgive me. I'm using a new software here, and I'm still kind of getting used to it. So there's some bugs. Like I said, usually when Daryl's here, I pretty much just have him push all the chats to me. And this time I thought it was going to be really cool and just have them pop up automatically. But apparently that's not working. But one of the things that we find out that's interesting is that Boba Fett is going up against the Hutts. Another thing that we find out that's really cool is that Black Sun is probably going to make its appearance. They're mentioned by name. Now, if you guys don't remember Black Sun, They were a criminal organization that was actually a creation of the expanded universe. Not sure if Timothy Zahn was the one who actually did it or not, but it was basically popping up all over the place. And I think that was the organization that Prince Caesar was in charge of, was Black Sun. So the fact that they actually are doing that is just absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I am looking so forward to seeing anything with Black Sun. So the first thing that we're going to find out, like I said, is what Boba Fett does with Han Solo. There's actually a lot that goes into this. You see here that there's, they're hovering over his carbonite frozen form or whatever. And I'm not really sure who this character is, but it really does make me amped up to see this series. I think that this is going to be just a fantastic series because like I said, I don't know about you guys, but I have always wanted to see what happens in between Empire and Return of the Jedi. Because quite frankly, we've never really seen that before. Most of the time, you'll see stuff that's happening before Episode 4. We're starting to see a few things now that's happening after Episode 6 and before Episode 7. And of course, there's a High Republic, that we're also seeing too, which of course is happening before Episode 1. But, I'm thinking that, excuse me, that the whole in between Episode 4 and Episode 5, and then in between 5 and 6, it's not really explored very heavily. And now we're starting to actually see that, and that's what's exciting to me. So the question becomes, what's next? I mean, we know that Boba Fett is doing his whole Book of Boba Fett thing, and we're still not sure where that's actually going to fall. We don't know if that's going to be a prequel series. Is it going to show us how he got out of the Sarlacc pit? Or is it going to maybe go forward? It seems like the whole thing that we got at the end of the season 2 of The Mandalorian, it looks like what we're going to get is something that happens around that time. Because clearly he's taken over Jabba's palace from Bib Fortuna, and we see that, sorry, Ronaldo, man, for some reason, these chats, it just keeps giving your greeting again. So I would say maybe don't chat right now. Maybe just put stuff in the comments section, and then I can respond to it later, because otherwise it's just going to people are going to think you're crazy. You keep saying what's up to me. But I think that the Book of Boba Fett is actually going to tell us what happens after what we see in Season 2 of The Mandalorian. Now, the question is going to be, what's going to happen up to Season 3, though? Because now that Season 2 has been wrapped up, you have to wonder, where does Boba Fett fit into all this now? And if you guys missed our show this past Monday, with the firing of Gina Carano, it's really going to be interesting because even though she's not what I would call like a main character, like she's not a major character, one of the problems, though, is the fact that Cara Dune still played somewhat of a popular role. Hey, it's a new chat. I wonder if they will use elements of this comic in the Book of Boba Fett. I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking the exact same thing, is the fact that with the Book of Boba Fett, they could use elements of this comic to lead up to that. But it's really difficult to say, because if they're going to do that, because this is taking place in between episodes 5 and 6, they would almost have to go back a little bit. Now, what it could do is it could set up maybe some storylines that they introduce in this, and then they carry it during that time period. So in other words, in between Empire and Return of the Jedi, maybe you have some sort of a thing going on that then pops up and you see what happens, because it's probably going to be like 7 years. So this is probably taking place 7 years before The Mandalorian. That would be my guess. Because there's about 5 years in between Return of the Jedi and The Mandalorian. And then there's like maybe a year or something like that, I think, in between Empire and Return of the Jedi. It's really tough to say. But, you know, this series could really go anywhere. And more importantly, you got to wonder, why are they making this series? I mean, granted, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of different things that they could do comic book-wise. But I don't know. I mean, it just seems weird that they're focusing on Boba Fett. And we're getting a lot of Boba Fett. He was always a fan favorite character, but one of the things that I always found really interesting was the fact that you never really got to see a whole lot of him. Because if you think about it, he's really not in the movies that much. His presence is felt, definitely, and he plays some very key roles. But as far as how many appearances he makes, he's not really in the movies that much. He's all over the expanded universe, but then when that was thrown away, and that became Legends, and now we have new canon, we really hadn't had very much. So, yeah, this comment section's actually kind of comical. But it shows that, you know, this is why I love new software. But like I said, guys, we'll get the bugs worked out. Just bear with me here. But one of the things that I think is interesting is with this time period, they're giving us all kinds of Boba Fett. First, they reintroduce him in The Mandalorian, which I thought was kind of cool. But we never really found out, well, how did he get out of the Sarlacc pit? Now, my question that you guys could put in the comments section is, do you think that it's important that we find out why he got out of the Sarlacc pit? Because if you think about it, on one hand, it's not really, to me, now again, you guys might have a different view on it, but to me, I don't necessarily think that we need to know exactly how he got out. Now, that's not to say that I wouldn't like to know. My mom's chatting in. That's cool. Yeah, it's just one of those things that I think that it would be really cool to see, though, how he got out of it. But again, I don't think it's necessarily vital. But again, that is another area they might go with the Book of Boba Fett. They might actually go back and say, hey, you know, let's show how he got out of the Sarlacc pit in a flashback. I don't think that they're actually going to go back. I don't think this is going to be a prequel series. But I do find it interesting, though, that they feel the need to actually bring this out at this time. I think it's funny that they're actually bringing it out at a time when we're in between seasons of The Mandalorian. We're coming up on the release of this new Boba Fett miniseries. And by the way, this series isn't just contained to this War of the Bounty Hunters thing. It's starting out, and I think there's going to be something like 4 or 5 issues of this, but then it's going to branch out into some of the other stuff that's happening. So in other words, the Dr. Aphra series, like anything that's happening during this time period, the Dr. Aphra series, the Darth Vader series, they mentioned some other ones specifically, the Star Wars series. It's the storyline's going to actually branch out into those. So I don't know about you guys, but I actually just find this whole thing super exciting. Not just because it's Boba Fett and not just because it's continuing his storyline, but one of the things that I find just tremendously exciting about this whole thing is the fact that we're actually starting to get stuff that's happening around this time period. In one of the issues, and Daryl and I are going to cover this probably in our show next Friday, is Lobot. Lobot, and I purposely haven't read it yet, but in this recent issue of the new Star Wars comics, the regular Star Wars series, Lobot's gotten into some trouble, and he may actually die. I don't know. If you guys have read it yet, don't spoil it for me. But we're going to talk about it, very, very soon, probably in next week's show, because I really want to start focusing on some of these comics because they are starting to really inform us about what's happening in some of the other series. And now that we're getting a lot of series, like we're getting the Ahsoka series, Rangers of the New Republic, of course, the Mandalorian's going to continue on, the Book of Boba Fett. All these other series are going to play into each other. And so they need something. They need some media to be the cohesive thread between all this stuff. So I'm really looking forward to this. As a Star Wars fan, I always love it when they give us more stuff. That's the reason why I love the novel so much. It's not so much that you need it to enjoy the movies, but if you do read them and you do consume them, it does make it more enjoyable. Like if you guys read Catalyst before you saw Rogue One, it just made the movie that much better. So again, I'm really hoping that they continue this and that they have a plan. That they have a plan and that they follow the plan and that, everything basically goes in a direction that makes sense. Because the last thing that the Star Wars fan base needs is toxicity. So pretty much, let me know what you guys are thinking about all this stuff. Because I really think that the Star Wars future is bright. I know a lot of people think that, okay, Star Wars is over, it's washed up, the sequel trilogy ruined everything. But I think with The Mandalorian, plus some of the other stuff that they're doing, the High Republic, there's just so many exciting things. I mean, Black Sun, really? They're bringing Black Sun back? It's going to be officially canon? To me, that's one of the most mind-blowing things. I was reading the article and I saw that. And I actually thought I misread it at first because it seemed like Crimson Dawn that they introduced in Solo was going to kind of be the new Black Sun, basically. But the fact that they're actually bringing Black Sun into this too, and the fact that this new comic series is going to be, pretty much like a crime drama, which is, I think, something cool. Oh, my mom's basically asking how do you get the comics? Basically, you just go to Amazon and you order them, you download them like you do a book. For those of you guys who don't know, because I know not everybody likes to go to the comic shops and actually buy the physical media. Some people like to consume their stuff digitally. I have to tell you that recently, maybe within the last year or so, I finally broke down and started getting the comics digitally. I was always a guy that, I love reading books digitally, but I can never get into the whole comic thing or newspapers or anything like that. There's just some things that I like to actually, hold in my hands and read and stuff like that. But I got to tell you, I am totally used now to actually reading the comics digitally. So I'm all about it. So I've subscribed to the Darth Vader series, Star Wars series, High Republic, stuff like that. I'm not reading every single Star Wars comic there is, but I am reading a lot of the key ones, at least the ones that I think are going to, make a really huge difference. So I want to hear from you guys, because basically, like I said, this show was just supposed to be a show. I really didn't want another Friday to go by where we weren't live and we weren't talking to you guys and we weren't, interacting with one another and just talking Star Wars like we do on a Friday night. Daryl and I should be back next Friday. We are going to be doing a show on Monday, because don't forget, we stream every Monday at 8 p.m. too. And we're going to be reviewing the second issue of the High Republic comic. It's interesting. I'll leave it at that. I'm not going to say whether or not I like it, and you guys just have to tune in Monday and check us out then. But, definitely join us again next Friday, where we're going to do a full-blown show. And let me know in the comments section, what do you guys think of this new comic series that's coming out, this War of the Bounty Hunters? Do you think that it's a mistake? Do you think it's a really cool thing? Are you going to get it? Or are comics not for you? Let me know. And then don't forget, if you do like our videos, hit that subscribe button, hit the like button. It definitely helps us out. Like I said, this is like a spur-of-the-moment video that I decided to do. We were going to go another Friday without actually having a show, but I was just like, you know what? I miss you guys. I miss actually being on and talking Star Wars with you guys. So when I saw this War of the Bounty Hunters thing, it was the perfect reason for me to come on and just do an impromptu show with impromptu software, which I promise will get all the bugs worked out. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed this little show that I did to tide us over. Join us Monday at 8, where we're going to be reviewing the High Republic issue number 2 comic series. And may the Force be with you, always.
Head to Head, a Star Wars podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter @HeadToHeadSW. Submit your questions for our next show. Visit our official website at headtoheadswpodcast.com. Until next time, may the Force be with you, always.